Hello and welcome to our student finance talk tonight. We're still letting a few people in, and thank you for attending. My name is Colleen Galley. I work for University of Bedfordshire as an outreach hub officer, and my colleague can introduce herself.
Hi there everyone, my name's Emma and I am a Widening Access Officer at the University of Hertfordshire. So very similar job, basically Colleen's equivalent at another university. So yeah, we've put this presentation together. So although we're here from Hertfordshire and Bedfordshire universities, we're kind of trying to be impartial and give information that sort of applies to all university applications. So if you've got any questions that relate to finance, we're happy to answer them, whether, it doesn't matter where your young people are applying to. This is sort of information that apply to all. So we'll give, a couple more minutes. I think we said we'd start at 6. So we'll give a couple more minutes, just let people in, and then we will get started. And I guess another thing to point out actually is that obviously cameras and mics are switched off for the audience. That's because we will be recording the session, so there'll be a recording and a video available for people who either missed it or wanted to go back and review some of the information, and we'll sort of share that and send out links to everyone to access it who attended as well. So yeah, we will be recording, but it'll just be me and Colleen, and then the screen will be recorded, so it won't record any of you because mics and cameras are switched off.
Thank you for your patience. We're just letting some more people in, and we hope to start promptly on time. Throughout the session, by all means, we encourage questions, and there'll be plenty of time at the end to answer these, but you can put your questions in the chat feature or
Q&A feature, I think it'll be.
Yeah. Q&A feature actually is what we prefer, and it's probably best if there's something that is particular. It's probably best for us to answer the questions at the end.
Yeah, so we'll keep an eye on the questions as they come throughout. So yeah, if something occurs to you, do put it in the Q&A section, but we'll save all questions to the end kind of once we've gone through, in case the question gets answered, or in case there's, sometimes it takes a bit more time and people need to leave. So we will get to all the questions. We'll just maybe leave those to when we've finished going through all the key information. So getting quite a good number of people, which is really nice, people joining and coming in. So thank you to those that have just joined. We're just waiting a minute or two to let everyone who signed up join, and then we will get started. So it looks like we have reached 6 o'clock. So what I will probably do, Colleen, is I will start, but we will continue letting people in. So to those of you that weren't here when we introduced ourselves, hello, my name is Emma. I'm a Widening Access Officer at the University of Hertfordshire. I'm joined by my colleague Colleen from the University of Bedfordshire. She is a outreach hub officer. So today we're going to be talking you through sort of student finance, and also including a little bit on responding to those university offers. So hopefully young people are getting those offers coming through, that you're seeing kind of that information. It's quite an exciting time, but there is quite a lot kind of to unpack and kind of get your head around for student finance. So hopefully this session will just clarify everything, make it a bit simpler, and make it sort of easy to understand, so you know what your next steps are if you're trying to support sort of a young person with that university application. So one thing that I always sort of highlight when we do this is kind of what comes to mind when you think of student finance for university. I think, if you look in the press, you look in the news, although I don't read that much news at the moment, but, when you do look at it, even the headlines are quite attention grabbing. You don't see the article, but the attention grabbing headline kind of sticks in your head. And that's something that we find with a lot of young people as well. So these are some examples of some headlines kind of talking about student debt, high fees. A lot of graduates are going to be in sort of huge amounts of debt. There's a huge loan, and that can seem really scary and intimidating. I think by the end of this session today, hopefully you'll see that maybe the headlines don't necessarily reflect the reality. And yes, there is a student loan, but it's not the same as a lot of other loans that we encounter. It's kind of a very specific bit of support that's offered to young people, and the idea is that it makes university affordable for everyone, no matter their circumstances. So really, student finance is designed to be that bit of extra support and to help pay for those associated fees at university, as well as the tuition fee costs. So we kind of split, the support is split and the costs are split into sort of two areas really. We've got tuition fees, which is the fee that universities charge for educating the students, and then you have living costs, which are all those extra things that students are going to have to cover, like travel, rent, food bills, things like that. And the support itself is split into kind of those two sections as well. So the first one is a tuition fee loan. So tuition fees are sort of that, if you've seen that figure, £9,250,000 a year is the maximum that universities can charge. It's capped at that amount. Foundation degrees, so if you're doing sort of a 1 year or 2 year sort of course before starting a full degree, are capped at a bit lower, around £6,125 per year. So all eligible students who apply for a tuition fee loan will be given that money. It doesn't matter what their personal circumstances are, what their household income is, none of that applies here. So as long as, when we say eligible students, it's basically if you're resident, have leave to remain in the UK, kind of a UK citizen, you are eligible for this amount. You get the full amount, doesn't matter what your personal circumstances are. And this money isn't something students have to worry about managing themselves. So this money is paid directly to the university from the student loan company. So it doesn't go into the student's bank account. So really what happens is students apply for student finance, just notifying student finance that they're going to university. When they then enrol on their course in September, October, and they start their course, the university confirms with the student loan company that student has started, and then that money is paid directly to the university each year to pay for that student's education. So as long as they apply on time and get the application processed before they start, and that's why it's important to apply sort of on time, early, as soon as applications open, because it can take a little while to process. But as long as they apply, that money is paid and they don't have to really worry about even managing it or seeing it, because it happens automatically. The money that young people have to maybe think about more and prepare for managing is the maintenance loan. So maintenance loan is where you might have come across this term, means tested. And what that basically means is that based on the student's household income, is kind of how much will define how much a student gets. So if a student has a lower household income, they'll be entitled to a bit more. If they have a slightly higher household income, they're entitled to a bit less. And it also takes into account where the student is choosing to live and study. So, for example, if you're choosing to live and study in London, costs are a bit more expensive, so students are usually entitled to a bit more. If they're moving away from home, they get a bit more, but if they're not living in London, the weighting is slightly less. But if they're choosing to stay at home and commute, they will usually be paid a bit less. So there's a couple of factors that feed into that. When we say household income, that is basically the parents and carers in that household where they live, their income. It doesn't include if the young person has a job themselves. So if they've got a student job, that's not calculated or included in that figure. It is just the sort of parents, carers in that household, what their sort of household income is. So in terms of showing you the sort of maximum amounts, there is sort of, it goes on a sliding scale. But say a young person was sort of staying at home, they're living at home, they're commuting, depending on their household income, they could be getting up to just over £8,000 a year. You can see that amount goes up a bit if they're moving away from home, so living in another part of the country, except for London. So that can go up to sort of just up sort of 9,700 around there. If they move into London, so they're living away from home, going into London, which, as we know, is a lot more expensive, the amount is increased again. So you can see kind of those are the maximum at the moment that young people could be eligible for. But to give you a bit more context, or a bit more sort of an idea of how that looks, you can see sort of that's the sliding scale of what they could get So depending on household income, you can see the amount goes up or down. And it is kind of varied and depends on individual sort of circumstances. So to kind of give you an idea of how you might find out what young people could be eligible for, we have this, there is this student finance calculator. So I apologise, this video is probably going to appear a bit small on your screen, but what we'll do is we'll put a link in the chat to the student finance calculator as well. But basically, if you Google student finance calculator or government student finance, you'll come across the website. So it should be that gov.uk website. You put in the year that the student is applying to university. Put in that usually they're full-time students, but if they're or undergraduate, but you know there's other categories, so it's important to check. Tuition fees, most universities charge the full £9,250 a year. Some universities don't, but most do, but it's always worth just checking. Then you put in that annual household income. That will include sort of adults living in that household, that primary household that that young person is in. And then there's extra categories, so maybe extra certain courses, and I'll cover these in a bit, that they are applying for, and extra categories such as things like disability and sort of family circumstances that are covered on there that might mean a student gets a bit more extra funding or is eligible. And it will tell you sort of whether you're eligible for the tuition fee loan, and then how much maintenance loan you might be eligible for. So this is something that I'd advise everyone to do. It's not a formal application, so it's not, they're not guaranteeing that's the amount, but based on the information you're putting in, they're saying that's around the figure that you should be eligible for when you apply. So hopefully that can kind of help if you're sort of working with a young person to figure out what their bills might be, if they're looking at accommodation and then rent and things like that, looking at what their maintenance loan might be. You can kind of figure out how much money they've got, if there's any shortfall, maybe looking for that part-time job that will cover that kind of thing. So as I mentioned on the other slide, there was extra support available. So this is extra support available sort of through, again, government funding, so student loan, things like that. So this is sort of some of the official extra categories that can get additional bits of support. So these are very specific to circumstance. So for example, the disabled students allowance, that is support to cover the study related costs you might have because of, it can be either mental health, it can be long-term illness, it could be disability, and that can include learning difficulties as well. So this isn't money that you get, but it is money that is paid towards covering extra costs. So for example, if a student had to get some specialist software on their laptop to help them write notes, for example, if they're dyslexic, then they can sort of apply for funding, and the disabled students allowance will give them a bit of funding towards paying for that. So it's very specifically linked to covering additional costs that a student might have. Then you've got things like the adults dependent grant. So if a young person or a student is got adults in their household that they are carers for, so they are young carers, they have caring responsibilities, they might get a bit of extra support. Childcare grant and parents learning allowance is for those who have children to help them cover some of those costs for childcare whilst they're studying and extra costs associated with that. So those are kind of extra pots of money sort of available. I would say it's always important to fill out the application forms sort of really honestly with this information, because then you will get the full amount of funding that you're sort of eligible for. There's also certain courses that will get extra funding. This is mainly because, you know, there's going to be shortage of workers in those industries, or the government wants to encourage people to take up those courses. So there are NHS bursaries, social work bursaries, and then extra funding available for teaching students as well. And if a student is studying medicine or dentistry, healthcare, they also might get travel grants as well, which help, because with those courses there's a lot of travel involved, travelling to placements, travelling to a sort of work experience, different hospitals, things like that. So again, if a student's applying for any of those courses, make sure that they put that down, because that might sort of entitle them to a little bit of extra funding. So there are also other avenues of funding which are a bit more, require a bit more research. So there are bursaries and scholarships available. These are individually linked to universities. So whereas the tuition fee loan, the maintenance loan, and sort of extra support like the disabled students allowance is all central sort of government funding. Universities themselves might have bursaries and scholarships to try and encourage students from particular backgrounds, or to take courses that where those students are underrepresented, for example, or to help support students that they know might benefit from extra support. So, for example, just giving you some examples, have included University of Bedfordshire, University of Hertfordshire, but also 2 other universities that we just looked at to see what they had on offer. So you can see the University of Bedfordshire is offering a bursary for all UK full-time undergraduate students, and they also offer a scholarship for students who achieve a certain amount of UCAS points in their level 3 studies. So if a student is going to University of Bedfordshire, they get over 112 UCAS points, they will be eligible for that scholarship. University of Hertfordshire offers that 1,800 per year for undergraduate study for independent or estranged students. So, for example, students that are estranged from their families can get a bit of extra support. Then you can see Liverpool John Moores University. They're trying to encourage young people from Black, Asian, minority ethnic backgrounds who have participated in their outreach programme. So students that have done some outreach work with them will be eligible for a bit of extra support. And University of Bristol, particularly for their physics and biology courses, they're encouraging sort of female students. So there is money available for students taking on those courses if they're from state schools and they are female. So this is not an extensive list. This is just an example of 4 universities and some of the funding that might be available. It's really varied. So scholarships tend to be for academic achievement. As you can see, University of Beds is offering a scholarship for those that get over a certain amount of UCAS points. So scholarships are often for things like grades, UCAS points, or if the student has a particular skill in sport or music, for example. And bursaries are usually more money that's given to support particular groups of students. So these are all individual. You have to kind of research them yourselves. So I would suggest, hopefully all young people applying this year should have the list of universities they've applied to. They might have got some offers through. So I would suggest the next thing to do is kind of do a bit of research on each of those universities' websites, if you haven't already, and just look for bursaries and scholarships and see what ones they have, because they will have lists. You know, each academic subject might have some, then there might be some university-wide ones, and each university won't have the same ones. They'll all be individual based on what that university thinks, based on their student cohort, the support is needed, or students they want to encourage at that university. So it is kind of a bit of research task. The good news about scholarships and bursaries, they're usually just money that is given to students that doesn't have to be paid back, so it's not part of that loan, it's kind of an additional bit of support. And I should have mentioned that actually about the extra support we mentioned before, like the course-based bursaries or disabled students allowance, adults dependent grant. Those are all sort of additional funds that don't need to be paid back, so they're not part of that student loan repayments. There is a website called the Scholarship Hub, which I will put in the Q&A section. Kind of, I'll put a link to that as well. I'll send it out an email after this as a follow-up from the session, which also will highlight, you know, companies or organisations that are offering scholarships and bursaries, because there are businesses and charities that also offer bursaries and scholarships for various different things. I did see one once that was from sort of a left-handed society that gave like a very small bursary to a left-handed student. So there's all sorts of random things. They're just set up by individuals, by companies, charities, to help young people get into education. So that's usually worth looking at to see if there's any that students might be eligible for. Usually for scholarships, you have to apply for them. Bursaries, not always. In many cases, universities will kind of identify if you fit the categories and contact you, but it is worth knowing what you could be eligible for, because if you don't hear anything, you might want to follow up with the university and just check. But for things like scholarships, you usually have to apply for them. So again, now they've done their university application, they might want to start looking at when do they need to apply for scholarships, if there are any available. And we do understand that in a lot of cases that maintenance loan might not cover all of their living costs, so students might have to find other sort of areas of financial support. That's why those bursaries and scholarships are there. But most students will have to get a part-time job as well. There are lots of job opportunities available, so Universities have a lot of jobs on campus, you know, within the library, within the teams that Colleen and I work in. We hire student ambassadors to help us with events, working with local schools. And students are paid for that work. They're paid to help do tours around campus, things like that. But equally, if the young person's already got a job with a big company, like a supermarket, for example, that has lots of different chains across the country, if they're moving, they can always ask to see if they can get a transfer, and usually companies are quite happy to do that. So that is something that students should maybe be looking into. If they're working at the moment, it might be worth them saving a bit so that they've got a bit sort of set aside for when they start university. Because as we said, that money isn't included in the means tested assessment. It's just sort of parents and carers income, so it's worth sort of young people saving a bit of money before they go, if that's possible. And family support I put on there, not because I expect everyone to have the money to pay that, but it's important, I think, for young people to have that conversation. I think I didn't really have that conversation with my parents, and that probably would have helped. I think I was always a bit embarrassed to talk to them about money, and I think even if you can't offer, you know, if you're saying we can't offer that, at least then young people know, and then you know to kind of plan for where to get extra funding from, whether they need a part-time job or what they're going to do. And it's good just to have that conversation early so that everyone knows they're kind of on the same page. And even if it's just maybe helping them with the grocery shop, you know, at the beginning of term, or the occasional support, is kind of good for young people to know what they might be able to get, and if they know that you can't support them, can you know, work on getting a job and that kind of thing. So that's kind of why we raise it, because there often is, particularly now with kind of cost of living situation, there might be a difference between the maintenance loan and how much they have to pay. So they might have a couple of extra costs that are not covered by that. So a part-time job might be needed. So most students will need sort of some time, kind of part-time work. So this can seem like a lot of money. If you're looking at, you know, how much they're paying for tuition fees, and you're thinking about the maintenance costs, you're thinking how they're going to pay that all back. And the key thing is they're not paying it back straight away. And there are sort of longer term benefits to think about. So the aim is that getting a degree kind of makes young people more employable. Graduates tend to earn, on average, 10k per year more than non-graduates, and they have lower unemployment levels. So although in the short term it can seem like there's sort of extra costs associated, in the long term, young people who've been to university tend to earn more money. Although that obviously depends on, we say on average because that depends on the industry they go into. Obviously some jobs pay a lot more, some pay less. But there are some other factors which Colleen is going to cover now, which will kind of hopefully highlight that although it seems like a lot of money, we say they're not paying it back straight away, and actually there's kind of a system in place to make that more affordable as well. So I will hand over to Colleen to cover that section.
Thank you. Yes, so as my colleague Emma said, unfortunately, you know, all students will need to take out a loan in, you know, to cover tuition fees. It's even if you have the money put aside, we still recommend that that's the easiest way for them, because they're entitled to it. And of course, whatever additional amount that they receive for maintenance, depending on the family income. For the loans, the good news is that students do not have to, it's not treated the same as a loan in the future for a mortgage, for a car loan. It's not going to affect their credit rating. In addition, they don't have to start paying it back immediately. It's usually the April after they have graduated or after they have completed the course. If they were to leave early, it's the April after that. So considering that most students, their last bit of, you know, term is usually around May, it's just under a year before they even are asked for a penny of that back. And then the positive, so though no one wants to have a loan, the positive is if they were to not be in employment or not be earning much when they finish university, the government does not ask for a penny back yet. So it's only if they're earning above a minimum amount. Now, there is a bit of a caveat. So we have this handy guide here. However, the government are in the process of trying to pass through a bill that will change these amounts. So the current students that are at university as right now, and that started previous to September 2023, the maximum, the minimum that they will be earning before starting to pay back is 27,295. That is likely to go through Parliament. It hasn't done yet, but it is expected to go down slightly to £25,000. And though that might sound a bit unfair, because obviously your children, your young person, whoever you're caring for, will start paying back earlier, it's still that 25,000 threshold. So that means anything above that is only when they have to start paying back. They don't have to remember to pay it back. Handily, the government takes it from their pay slip in the same way as they do taxes, national insurance. So it'll automatically come out. And here are some examples. So we've got, say if they're earning £30,000 a year, that could be quite a decent salary, especially if they have no dependents. So their monthly income would be roughly 2,500 before tax. So the monthly repayment is only £20. £20 compared to, as we all know, something like national insurance, taxes, pensions, other expenses, that can be quite a small amount. So it varies based on how much they're earning. The other thing I'd like to point out is that though it only starts to kick in when they're earning a minimum amount, at any stage, if someone becomes unemployed, if they were to have a reason why they're no longer working for a period of time, the government doesn't continue to ask for the money. So again, that's another difference between that and any other kind of loan, where pretty much you're paying whether you're in a job or not, whether you're only part-time or not, no matter how low your income. So that is some reassurance. Okay, so do you have to pay back the student loan for the rest of their life? So the answer is no. So because it isn't like another loan, and like I said, this 27,295, that's the threshold at the moment, but it is very, very likely to change because the government is proposing it goes down to 25,000. These repayments, it doesn't affect, as I said, their credit score, and they are taken directly from their as a tax. So it is seen as sort of a graduate tax. Now, again, at the moment, not necessarily good news for your young people or mine, for anyone who's starting from September. But at the moment, the loan is written off after 30 years. Another proposed change, which is very, very likely to go through in Parliament with this bill that they're changing, this will be written off at 40 years. So unfortunately, that's an extra 10 years. The reason for that is because currently less than 50% gets paid off. It is such a tiny amount, and because at any stage someone's leaves their job, someone travels, someone goes back to education, at any stage that they stop earning that minimum amount, which is likely to be 25,000 for your young people, then they're not paying. So it does mean over their lifetime, they are very unlikely to pay back the full amount. So you might have some questions about that. By all means, put them in the chat. So next bit is how to apply. So the beauty is, in the same way they had one application for UCAS for all the universities that they want to apply for to study at, there is only one application for the student loans. And that would cover both tuition fees and maintenance, and some of the additional extra funding that Emma mentioned, such as disability student allowance and other forms of extra funding. So this is on the government website, and this year they are saying that sort of March. So right now the applications aren't open. Again, it's because the government is trying to put through some changes through Parliament. Otherwise, it would be open by now. So it's so important that your young person applies on time. So start to look on the student finance website starting in March. Keep looking if it's not open yet. If it's only open partway through March, have a look, because they really only have until the end of May to have everything organized in time. If they're entitled to anything additional or require any additional information from yourselves about the application, it is so important that they have time to submit anything. If they do have a disability, and a disability can include a medical condition, a learning difficulty, as well as a physical disability, but they would require some proof. So there might be some assessment that they need to have. So it's so important that they have everything in place, because when they start in the September, October time, the university needs to know that that money is coming through for them. So, other important bit of information is when they are applying, it is so important that they do not use their school or college email address, because of course, once they complete their course, they will no longer be registered at the school or college, and therefore come September, October, for any additional payments or any information that they need, they will not be able to access those. So if they don't already have a personal email address, encourage them to create one, and make sure that it is appropriate, so that it does or doesn't have to feature their name, but is not something that they're going to be embarrassed about when they're putting it on their application. So what you'll need to apply, your students will need to apply proof of identity, as well as you as parents or carers will need to show proof of household income. So they don't have to be UK citizens, but they do need to have a legal right to live here and have proof of residency for 3 years. They are likely to need the national insurance number as well. Even if they've never taken a part-time job, they will have their national insurance number to prove their identity. For yourselves, you will need to provide something like P60, proof of a pay slip, but all that will be explained to you on the comprehensive application on the Gov website. So if your circumstances change at any stage, so you start to earn more money or you start to earn less money, if you're unfortunately in a position that you're earning less, then the young person that you're responsible for would be entitled to probably more money in terms of maintenance. So this is still a loan that they will pay back, but as my colleague said, there is a maximum amount, and if they start off by only getting a set amount, but they're not getting the full amount, they might, in the course of their study, be entitled to more. So every year and at any stage within that year that your circumstances change and they require more funding because you're earning less, then by all means you can change that. Now here it says that if your income has changed by 15% or more, then you can apply for a current year income assessment. But equally, every year you will still need to do a new assessment. All students do. Hopefully that makes sense. So we want to just go through about offers. We will be very happy to answer lots of questions about student finance, which was the main topic, but it's also a time when your young person is receiving offers and may want a bit of a refresher about what is going to be happening. So what type of offers are there? So there's different types of UCAS offers. Hopefully, if your young person's already applied within those 5 universities that they've applied for, the 5 courses, hopefully they have a good amount of offers that they've received. The typical one is a conditional offer, and that would be conditional upon them meeting certain conditions. Usually it's specific grades that they're asking for. So it might be that they ask for particular points, UCAS tariff points, or they're asking for specific grades, either overall or within a specific subject that they're studying at A level or at BTEC. The other option could be unconditional. Now, universities are being encouraged to not give unconditional offers, but there are still some out there, and that would be an unconditional offer means it's not based on how well the young person does in terms of their final exams. They have a place at university. So if that is the case, they would only be saying that they are going to be attending that university. So they will not have like a backup, which we would call a firm and insurance choice. They would only have one choice. I cannot stress this enough. Every single year when students have received unconditional offers, some of them, luckily not many, but some of them think, well, then it doesn't really matter how well I do in my exams. We cannot stress enough that though they may get into that university regardless of how poorly they do or even not sitting exams, and we have lots of people that I know of that have had this happen to them, please, if they will listen to you, please encourage them to sit those exams and do as well as they possibly can, because it'll still go on their record when they apply for jobs in the future. Also, it's always possible that they don't complete their course, in which case they don't get those qualifications, in which case they don't have those A levels, B Tech or T levels, or whichever qualification they're applying with, they won't have that. So push themselves as much as possible as if they don't have an unconditional offer. That is definitely my advice. The other two possible responses through UCAS are withdrawn. Withdrawn is not personal to that student. It means that the course is no longer available from that university. And the other one is unsuccessful. Again, it can be disheartening to see your young person be unsuccessful, but hopefully there will be other places and other offers. And of course, there are other opportunities as well. So if you have unconditional offers, why do universities offer them? Well, it takes a lot of the stress off of the universities to make sure that they have those places and the students available. But like I said, it's so important that students just don't coast or think that they don't need to try hard. They still want to get as good a grades as possible. GCSE grades, A-level grades, any level 3 level course, all of the courses that they do will be asked for at some point when they're applying for jobs in the future. So it's really important they still try their best. So some of the reasons, obviously they may want to see that they can complete their course. They may have very high caliber students. They may offer students because they're predicted really high grades. But again, if they don't receive those high grades, that doesn't mean they won't get on the course, but it does mean that that will reflect badly on them in future. So they want to try their best. Universities also get funding depending on how many students they have. So that's another reason why they would offer an unconditional offer to the students. And there are no student number caps. That means that universities can try to attract as many students as possible. And obviously that helps with their finances. So it may be tempting. Make sure that your young person thinks wisely, and even if they get an unconditional offer, that it is definitely the university and the course that they want to apply for and study at. So what if they don't get an offer? The great news is that there are extra chances. So though it can be very demoralizing and some people can be really upset about it, if the school hasn't told them, then please do make sure that they know that they have two other chances. So one is UCAS Extra. So that starts very, very soon, actually, on the 23rd of February, and it runs through to the 4th of July. UCAS Extra, they can apply to one university at a time. And again, they will still use the same application. So that means that their personal statement and the subject that they have said that they're interested in will still go to that university. So if they've applied for business and economics and now decide, well, I don't have any offers, I'm going to do sports therapy, that could be a bit of a problem because the personal statement will remain the same. So it's most important that they apply for something that's slightly related to the subjects that it is states on their personal statement. But basically they just apply one at a time. So they apply to one university. If they get an offer, that's the university that they intend to study at come September. If they get a rejection from that university, they just keep trying, and there is no limit. They can just keep trying, but they do try only one at a time. It's no longer putting 5 down. The same thing for clearing. Clearing is an extra chance. So once they actually get their results, clearing takes effect. And if they aren't successful at getting the grades required, again, they get one at a time. They contact university. If they give them a place, then they know they have somewhere to attend. It's really important that they look at all the alternatives and all the options. It is possible, if they really had their heart set on a particular place, they may want to resit their current course. They may want to take a year out, but if they still want to go to university, don't let them just give up. Apply through extra or apply through clearing. A couple more slides. So here's a little bit more about extra. So it is only if they've applied for the 5 choices and they don't have any offers. If they have offers, even if they only have one, then they cannot use UCAS Extra. It is something that they can use before the 4th of July if they haven't used all their 5 choices. They can actually, I believe they can add some choices if they haven't used all 5. If after 21 days, so they apply one at a time, if they haven't heard from the university, they can choose to continue to wait, but they can decline that one and submit a new choice. So remember, they can only apply to one at a time through Extra. So here's some important dates. Please don't go on holiday on the last day before the last day of their exams, which is the 28th of June. Most of you will already know, most students should already know by now what dates they have for their exams, but please do double check with the exams officer at the school or college that your young person goes to. Equally, make sure that you're not on holiday on results day. So the 17th of August is when all of the results go out for all schools and colleges that offer a level 3 course. And it's on that day and not before. Though clearing opens before that, it's only for people who already have completed their course and have their results. The 17th of August is the first possible day for your young person to start to use clearing. And that's when they get their results. And if they don't have what they want in terms of grades to get into the courses that they've applied for as their firm or their insurance, then they have this extra chance. Okay, so you can find out more information on UCAS. You can also find out more information on our website. Our website is likely to be, it's currently undergoing some edits, so it'll be back up and running on Monday. But now I open it up to questions. I know as my colleague was starting at the beginning, there was a few people who had hands up. You're more than welcome now to put your hands up or put your questions in under the Q&A section. I'm just going to check our Q&A to see. There aren't any questions in there at the moment. Please feel free to ask us anything, and it can be to do with student finance, about offers, and of course it's not exclusive to our university, it's for all universities within the UK.
Yeah, feel free. I mean, if you'd rather just ask us directly and you want to put your hand up, I think I can unmute you, so we could do it that way if you prefer, but otherwise, yeah, post a question in. It might be that we've just been really thorough in answering our questions, in covering everything, but yeah, we've left a bit of time just in case there was any questions that come through, but it does look like there's not much coming through at the moment. What I will do, whilst we're kind of waiting to see if anyone has any questions, I'll post some links in here as well. So I mentioned the Student Finance Calculator and the Scholarship Hub. So the Scholarship Hub is a website where you can find out what, companies, charities are maybe offering scholarships and bursaries that might be available and things that young people could apply for. And the Student Finance Calculator is where you can find out what your young person might be eligible for in terms of sort of figuring out what maintenance loan they might get before they apply. So I'll post those in the chat as well, just so that you've got those links, because I think both of those would be really useful. Particularly Student Finance Calculator, I think it's worth having a look at, because you can kind of get an idea what the young person might get before applying, so you can kind of start to plan, you know, if they need a part-time job or need to save a bit of money. We've got a hand up. So now, Leslie, keep your hand up and I will try and find you in the list of attendees, and I can allow your mic. So hopefully you can unmute now and ask your question. Let's see.
Hi, I posted in the Q&A, but it seems to have disappeared. It was a really, really helpful presentation, actually. Thank you very much. And I was wondering, because of all the links that you've got in there, would we possibly have access to the slides afterwards?
Oh yeah, sure. Your questions just come through, Leslie. That's really weird. Don't know why it's weird. What we can do, we can send out we'll send out an email with information and links, and then we'll put a link to our recording when the website's working as well. And actually, unfortunately, we're doing a bit of technical stuff on the website and updating it, so it's sort of down at the moment. But when it's up and running, we've got loads of information on there about student finance and everything else to do with the university. So we will include that link as well, so that you've got all that information. Yes, 100%.
Just another thank you. Just a quick question. I think I might have misunderstood, but on one of the slides it said clearing 5th of July, but is that to do with UCAS first? No, I wasn't sure what that meant.
Yeah, so I think I tried to address that, but probably didn't make it clear. So clearing starts, though it starts on the 5th of July, that is for students who already have their results. So if someone's taken a year out, or someone's gone off to work or something for a year, or done something different, then they can apply through clearing on the 5th of July. For any students who are currently still doing their level 3 course, then they can only access clearing on results day, and that's the 17th of August.
Yeah, that's great. That clears it up. Thanks very much.
Okay. And any more questions? We're happy to answer any more questions. We do. Are there any other information sessions that we're running? That's Oliver's asked that question. Yes, we have. Sorry.
I was going to say yes. Do you want to carry on, Colleen? I'm going to get the links for them while you're answering that, so that I can post them.
So if you have any young people who are slightly younger, so I'm assuming if you're attending tonight that you've got someone who's in a sixth form or a college and doing a level 3 course, but for those who are in year 10 or year 11, we've got something in a few weeks' time on post-16 options. And in addition, we also have one on UCAS. So that would be particularly relevant if you have someone in year 12, so like at the beginning of college or sixth form, who hasn't had any information yet, and you want to support them with UCAS. We will cover something about clearing, so you can most certainly still attend. There might be more information that you want, but some of it you may already know.
And I would also highlight, I have something. Well, yeah, Colleen, actually, this is something I've organised, but Colleen probably will be invited as well. And actually all of anyone from Beds or Herts is welcome on preparing for results day, which is another session. It's advertised as a student session, but I expect parents will want to come, carers want to come to that as well. So that'll be for if you've got young people that have applied for university this year and they're waiting for their results. That'll be happening in the summer, and that's just going to be in more detail, really, how to prepare for results day, what to expect, actually what's going to happen on the day, and particularly, what to do if students don't get the results they want or they change their mind. So we've got a couple of sessions. Some of them are on Eventbrite, so the link that you used before, and one of those actually will be a different form, but I will put all of those in the chat. So we've got a couple coming up, so it'd be really nice to see people there, and hopefully those will be just as useful.
And we do read through some more questions. Kevin asked a very good question, and I'm not ignoring the person with their hand up. I think if you keep it up, then Emma will be able to unmute you in a second. I was just going to answer Kevin's question, which is, do you still have to repay the loan if you move abroad to work? Good. It's a very good question. And actually, when I go into colleges, and sixth form, sometimes the students ask me this. It depends on if they, I suppose, if they have a reciprocal agreement that country that they go to. I mean, obviously, it's possible that if they don't know you're there, well, if they don't know the young person is there, that they would be taking a break from paying for that loan for a while. However, at any stage that they re-enter the country, then they will catch up with them, and so I don't necessarily recommend that, and I know people in reverse who are from another country who then came to the UK, but they still paid their they were still honest with the taxpayer from that country, and paid their student loans.
I would say generally student finance will be checking. So if you stop repayments for any reason, they will say, they will send you letters and say, are you still working? Generally, I mean, you do. So the answer is yes, you will be and should be repaying when you go abroad. If you don't tell them, it will be something that they will then chase you up on. So yeah, if you didn't pay for a period of time, they would eventually be saying, well, actually, there's all these repayments that you haven't made that you need to make. So yeah, I get asked this a couple of times by students, but yeah, the expectation is you do. Some countries will be much more closely linked up with our system. Other ones, there might be additional paperwork you have to do, but generally, because when you apply for a job, if it's a salaried position, you let the employer know that you've got a student loan, and they will actually sort out repayments with the student loan company. If you're self-employed, you have to manage those repayments yourself, and that's part of like your tax return process each year and submitting your tax return. So whether you're working abroad or in the UK, if you're self-employed, you'd be doing that automatically. So the answer is yes. If you didn't do those repayments, eventually they would be chasing you for them. If you weren't earning enough to make repayments, that's a different story. But yeah, in terms of if you're earning enough, you should be doing those payments. Do we have any other questions in there that we want to go through? I know someone's got their hand up, so I'll unmute them in a second.
Yeah, I don't see any other questions posted, but yeah, if we can get the person whose hand is up.
I will allow Mike for, so Ali, you should be able to unmute yourself now, hopefully.
Hi, thank you. I was just wondering, is it possible to pay off a loan in any other way other than the repayments? For example, if you were able to pay a lump of it, a lump sum, is that possible, or is it only through monthly repayments? Thank you, and thanks for the presentation.
It is possible, but I would say most students are never going to pay it off, and the repayments that the government takes are like the minimal payment. And so actually, if you pay off larger chunks, you're just giving them more money than you actually would have done if you'd paid off those monthly payments. I don't know if Colleen I think with older systems, when the loan was less, you were likely to pay it all off, it was maybe worth paying off chunks. I would say now, because of the amount, it's actually, you'd probably be, doing yourself out of money that you would never have paid them otherwise, if that makes sense. I don't know if Colleen, if you can explain or give any other detail to that, but
yeah, I would agree. I mean, the thing is, because it gets written off, because it is based on salary, though you can and I'm sure that the government would welcome you paying off in chunks. The thing is that the way it's calculated, the student might only have to pay off say 40% or 50% or 60%, and if you pay off in chunks, you're paying them more than you might need to. Obviously, it's an individual choice, but regardless of salaries, I know most people are just sticking with the minimum payment that's taken from their salary. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
Okay. We do have a question about co-parenting.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. So I've had this before, so I'm happy to answer this unless you wanted to have a go, Colleen, but if you're happy for me to go, because I've had this question before. So generally, what the government will expect is that you will put the parent or carer or household that the young person is in the majority or the larger portion of their time. So say it was a you know, if they're split across two households, and they're in one household sort of 3 days a week, and then the other days they're in the other household, it would be in that household that they spend the majority of their time. If it's a 50-50 split, it's kind of a case of choosing which, maybe whether it's the household that will be sort of what their primary address is. It's sort of listed as, I think, is the main way that they go with that. But I understand that can be tricky because obviously different households might have very different incomes for the maintenance loan. So that is something to think about for that, because that might affect, you know, how much the young person gets, but it should be the household that they spend sort of the larger portion of their time in. If I hope that helps. That is a tricky one, but that's kind of what they expect. And if they spend more time with one of their parents, that's the household or the parent that would be included on the application. And
another thing is it also depends on the parent who is receiving child benefit. So most people, depending on their income, receive some sort of child benefit until the young person is 18 and no longer in education. It could be challenged if you put someone different to the person who is receiving child benefit for that young person. So you might want to look at that. If someone's claiming child benefit, it might have to be that person.
So I think that seems to have gone through, answered everything. Answered everything on that point. I have just posted a link to some of our other sessions that we're running. So Colleen mentioned the university application session. Next steps after GCSE is kind of for younger students, but if you've got parents with younger people, but if you've got younger children in your household, sort of in year 10, year 11, that might be good. And then that preparing for results day is probably really useful. And we've advertised that for students as well as parents. So it'd be really useful actually for your young people, if they want to attend or listen with you, do sign up for that one, because I think that will help to kind of maybe allay anxieties as well. Because I remember back when I did, got my A-level results, that was quite a stressful time. Quite, you're really anxious to get the grades that you need to get into uni. So hopefully in that session we'll kind of cover everything so that everyone feels prepared ahead of the day. I'll just check to see if we've got any more questions come through. I can't see any more at the moment. It looks like we've answered most of them. And yeah, it's good that the questions have come through, because at first they weren't coming through, so I don't know what happened there. But if there's you've got sort of another 5-6 minutes to ask any questions, but if there's none, then I think we've run perfectly to time. So everyone's done a good job. But yeah, if there's any other questions that pop up, let us know. I can't see any more though, so otherwise please do sign up to the other sessions that I've put a link to in the Q&A section. And please do check out the Student Finance Calculator and the Scholarship Hub, for example, to see and start sort of looking at what finance might be available, because I think that's worth sort of checking that out and having those conversations now, so that young people are prepared and can kind of plan ahead and start maybe making a budget. It might be the first time they've had to do that, so it's good to kind of do that sort of well ahead of time. I didn't know if there's anything else you wanted to add, Colleen, because it looks like we might have answered everyone's questions.
We're just going to thank you for attending. By all means, have a look at both Eventbrite, and then probably wait till next week. Have a look at our website, because there might be other events or other information on there that will be of benefit, including in our video section. There are some current university students, and they talk about budgeting, so that also can be very useful for your young person.
I think that is all the questions come through. So thank you so much, everyone, for coming. It was really nice to have you here. Thank you so much for engaging and asking questions. Hopefully this has been helpful, and it's kind of sort of clarified how all of student finance works and clarified that process for you. if you do get any other questions, when our website is kind of back after sort of being reviewed and updated, Colleen and I actually are on there, and there's a little chat box that pops up when you visit the website. It looks like a chat bot. The questions are answered by myself and Colleen. If there's no one there at the time, it'll ask you to leave a message in an email. So we're very happy if you get other questions that crop up at any point and that you want to ask them, please do pop onto the website and post them there, or attend one of our other sessions that we've got coming up. We'd really love to see you there. I think that is it. So thank you so much for coming. Have a lovely evening, and hopefully we will see you all again soon.